sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Somewhere between science and superstition.
We have such sights to show you.
Strange Aeons. Welcome to Strange Aeons Radio. That's Eric Margaret over there.
Hello.
That's Vanessa Williams over there.
It is?
I'm Kelly Young.
As far as we know.
Oh my God. This is shocking information.
We're talking romance today, you guys. Love is in the air. But before we get to that, I thought I'd share with you and our listeners some big news.
Oh.
I signed a lease for this place. So
For here?
Yes. So Strange Aeons radio offices will continue to be here. You will continue to hear seagulls in the background.
Yay!
And I will not have
Cheers.
to worry about where I'm moving to.
It's bad luck to
Good
cheers with
sir.
water, but imagine this is not water. That's awesome. Oh my God.
Yeah. So that takes a little bit of pressure off, and maybe I can start enjoying doing this again.
Yay. Oh no.
Where you don't spend most of the time going, yeah, it's nice recording. In the background while we're talking about the movies, your head's going, it's nice recording here. I hope I can continue.
There was a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
So
So is there any big
Very
like
cool.
revelations? Like, did you just burst into your office manager, apartment manager's office and say, I demand one more year, sir? And then just like chain yourself.
it
to
went a
the
lot like
pipe.
that, except I said, is there any chance that I'll be able to live here for another year? Uh-huh. So very similar to what you
Oh,
had
sure.
said.
Yeah. 1 to 1.
Just the same. Kick the door in.
I'm not leaving and you can't make me. This is my home.
The problem, of course, is that I was already paying too much here,
Yeah.
and they raised my rent.
Of course. Yeah.
I'm doing that, but you know what? It's worth it for the peace of mind and not having to pack everything up.
It also balances out not doing first and last again. And you know, if you figure that over a year, $50 to $75 a month right there at least.
Absolutely. And it means I'm going to invest in some cushions for these rock hard seats that we sit upon. What it means is that for another couple of months, we will sit here in jackets, freezing our asses off,
Yay!
recording this, and then we will be in tank tops and sweating our balls off as we record in the summer.
The tank top years, the tank top months, I should say, are very. I didn't expect how hot it would be.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's impressive.
It's a toasty situation.
Yeah, it's a cool place. It sounds like I live under a bridge, but that is not the case.
No.
Maybe above a bridge. Imagine the world
And you
above
just
the
don't
bridge.
know it.
Okay, what have you guys been up to in the last week or so?
Well, you know how my wife and I do that. What the hell? Let's see all the Best Picture nominations.
Oh, right.
Oh,
the end of the
cool.
year.
Yeah.
We packed off the last 3 or 4 this last week. So I'm not going to go into any kind of detail, just sort of rattle through them quickly and talk a little bit. But Jojo Rabbit, freaking great.
I like
Holy
it.
shit, that is-
I'm a little confused by people who don't, but
And anything Sam Rockwell's in is at the very least, watchable.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
He's in fine form in this one.
Oh,
So good.
How did you
good.
watch that? Is that streaming
Theater.
now? Oh, it's still in theater. Okay.
It is. I think it's both, but we were able to see it in the theater, so which is fun.
Did you cry like a little girl?
Not as much as I thought I would, but some.
Okay, show off.
No, just hollowed out over the last couple of years. I think.
If you don't cry at least literally one time in that film, you're a broken human being. You need therapy.
Yeah, no, it's really well done, well directed, well written, well acted.
Yeah.
It's always great to see a kid be that good in a movie.
Boy, he was amazing. And Scarlett Johansson, I don't think has ever been better.
She was so good. Between that and Marriage Story this year, she's freaking killing it.
Speaking of, that was another one we saw. Let me tell you, that's not fun watching with your wife.
You
It should be called Divorce Story.
Yes,
I'm
yes,
pretty-
it should.
I'm pretty glad I watched it completely alone. Honestly, was she? It didn't cause you guys to have an argument? Or
Oh, no,
anything?
not
Okay,
at all.
That's good.
But it's just, I had problems with 2 of the films,
Yeah.
Irishman and Marriage Story, for one very particular similar reason. They are very much exactly what you expect them to be,
Right.
with no bumps, no changes, nothing.
Yeah.
I've seen Irishman done by Scorsese, 3 or 4 times?
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, much better. Mm-hmm. And Marriage Story was kind of like, I don't want to sit in this wall anymore and watch these people go through what they're going through because they were so good.
Oh my God.
The other day you were talking about something you watched where they didn't push in enough. And we talked a little bit about this, about the Stephen King story the other day where the guy's using the weird wide angles and you feel
Right. Yeah.
this guy did not spare you anything.
No.
God
You
damn.
were in every emotional moment.
Yeah.
And there, I mean, it just, that film just destroys you.
I was like, okay, well, there's the one I don't ever want to watch again for this year.
I cried, I think, the entire way through that movie. I don't think there was a moment I was not crying.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. And like I mentioned, The Irishman, I thought, why is Scorsese not? It's sort of like Meryl Streep. Oh, Scorsese directed something. We have to nominate him, and we have to nominate the movie, and we have to nominate Robert De Niro. They're all good. They're all solid. Everything about it is done well. But like I said, I've seen that movie before. Goodfellas did most of that movie much better.
Oh, yeah. I think they're just like, I guess it's time we mention this guy.
He hasn't done a movie in a long time, so.
But like, I am sad that I have to confess that I have not made it through Irishman yet. I'm watching it in 2-minute increments across. Like, it's just I start watching it and I'm like, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to leave, and I want to watch something entertaining, like Dracula or anything, literally anything, but not this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if I remember right, it's almost exactly the story of Goodfellas, except it goes a little further, where it's like, here's a guy who's not Italian, let's bring him in, and now he becomes really powerful and really a part of the team, and it deviates after that. I agree with what a lot of people said. A large portion of the film is just the last half hour to 40 minutes is so good and so different. The rest of the movie, though, is you've seen it before.
I've been having a really hard time getting into it, for sure. Maybe I should just skip to the end.
And then last night yesterday we capped it off with Little Women, which you were so right about. She directed the shit out of that movie. It's like, holy crap, the scene setups, the way things are done, the layouts, things where she's writing. It's just like this. And I don't think I've ever seen Little Women before. I haven't read the book. Yeah. It's very good.
Yeah.
It's really good. And yeah.
I mean, like there were no surprises for me because I grew up as a girl, which means you're exposed to Little Women in the 90s. So the Winona Ryder version came out. So I've seen it like a million times. But the attention to detail is, I mean, it just makes that world come alive. It just has so much air in it and so many nice little moments and surprises. And, the acting, like, I just don't. I'm sad that she didn't get nominated.
Yeah. And the time shift took me a little bit to get used to. I was very happy when she cut her hair. And now I can follow the time shift a little better. But that was part of the amazingness of the directing. That part, and I won't, well, most people might start a story, but I won't anyways, where it leads up to one point and they're at the table and leads up to another point at the table. And the way they get to the table each time is really good. But the ending each time when they go to the table is different. I was like, fuck, that was so good. And she wrote it too, or adapted it.
Yes.
It's like, fuck, yeah. I get why people were complaining about no nomination for her, because that was far more interesting directing for me, for either The Marriage Story or Irishman.
I agree.
Far more interesting.
Yeah, because like with Marriage Story, it's a pretty straightforward story, and the actors really steal. Like the shots, I don't think, as far as like mise en scène, is particularly thrilling. Yeah. 1917 is the opposite to me, where the shots are incredible, but there isn't that much of a story. And then this is just like, what the hell, guys?
Yeah, Marriage Story is a really well shot stage play.
Yes.
It's like, here's the setup, here's the people, wide, close, tight. Wide, close. I mean, it's
totally.
well
it's a
directed,
play.
but
it's a play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And ended the night quite late last night with Parasite.
Oh my God. You waited till the end for Parasite?
Just the way it worked out, but holy shit.
That's exhausting.
I love that one.
Yeah?
Oh my God. Have you seen Parasite yet?
I have not. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about it then, because that's part of what's cool about it, is not knowing what's going on in that film. One of those good ones to go in to not know a damn thing. I enjoyed it a lot, but I've seen both The Host and Snowpiercer. I don't think I've seen any of his others, but I need to. But I think this is superior to both of those. It's just oh man, it's a fucked up story with people you want to like, but you can't. It's really, really well done.
I think the script on that is incredibly rich and super well laid out. No, I agree. I don't want to say anything about it either. Just that it'll knock your socks off. I still don't know if I like it or not.
Oh yeah, which is part of why I like the film, though.
But I mean, but when I think about that movie, the visuals are so powerful in it. There are some really great, gorgeous, crazy shots that just sum up what is happening in the story so succinctly visually that he hit it out of the ballpark with that.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah. And that's rental now. I don't know if it is rental on whatever form you want to rent it on, Amazon or Apple or whatever. Okay, there you go. I rattled a whole bunch. What you guys got?
Well, let's talk a little bit about a movie you guys have already seen. I saw 1917 also.
Oh, okay. What do you think?
At no point do they say we can't send carrier pigeons to do this. There's plenty of ways they could have done this better than sending two guys, and they never explain anything. Mm-hmm. That being said, I liked it a lot. I think it should get Best Picture just because of the spectacle.
It is pretty enormous.
Yeah. I thought it was really, really amazing. I didn't love it.
Right.
And I'm not even sure that I liked it that much. But I thought I was completely enraptured the entire time. I followed along just on the edge of my seat going, wow. And mostly it was because I kept going, how did they do that?
Yeah.
How much of this is digital right now? Stuff like that. Because like you guys were saying, the breaks when they happen are flawless.
And when you're watching the credit sequence and the visual effects, there's not many.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
In the big blocks. I always look to see
it's not like
how
a
many
Marvel movie.
Right, where it's 10 minutes of names.
No, it's actually, it seemed to me when watching the credits, I was like, this really feels like they spent a lot of time doing it on the day.
It's definitely a gimmick, but I think it's a pretty impressive gimmick, and it should probably win for that.
Yeah, it was, I'm kind of with you. It was like, well, this is so cool to watch from a filmmaking perspective.
Yeah.
As a film, it's largely immediately forgettable. The story is just gone.
Absolutely. I was kind of like, even as the film ended, I was like, I followed everything. I'm not sure. I feel like something else should have happened.
Yes.
So I don't know how I felt about it, but like you, Eric, I did not think it packed the emotion that it was supposed to be packing at the end. I felt like they were acting like this was a really big deal, and I wasn't there with that.
Yeah.
I think the part that really struck a chord with me more than the ending and more than the other moments where I think I was supposed to be feeling things was the singing in the woods.
That one, I actually disliked that scene because it felt so...
Like contrived?
Yes. It felt like here's the moment where you all go, oh, you get to take a breath and listen to the beauty of this voice in the middle of a war. And I was like, fuck you. Get back to the story.
Oh, my God.
I stood up in the theater. Boring.
You brought your air horn just for such a moment. Move it along, people in the back. You can fast forward this bit. Well, I went and saw a film.
Oh, it sounds like it rocked you.
It was not what I expected it to be. I went and saw Gretel and Hansel.
Okay. This has
one.
been very divisive.
It's been divisive, really.
Oh, yeah.
Some people love it. Some people really
By
hate
the
it.
guy who did, the Black Coat's
Yeah.
daughter?
Black Coat's daughter.
Oz Perkins,
Yeah.
And
Which I really liked.
I am the pretty thing that
Lives in
lives in the house. And I will say, actually, Black Coat's Daughter is one of the scariest films I think I've ever seen. It shook me to my core.
It's
and
spectacular.
It's pretty good, yeah.
It's just so harrowing, and I don't know if I'm like afraid of demons or what, but it just oh, it was intense. This film, it was so lost.
Really?
It was so lost the whole way through. Like, I mean, it just didn't know quite what it was, and it didn't maybe have the guts to be what it wanted to be. I walked away going, triangles. Cool, triangles. You love triangles. Triangles, scary triangles. They're everywhere. Watch out for the triangle. Ooh, triangle there. Watch out.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's not really, I wouldn't say it's a horror story, and I wouldn't say it's strictly a fairy tale, but it's something in between. But it doesn't achieve either, because of that. The acting's fine. I don't know. It just wasn't. I don't think it was a very good film.
I
That's too
noticed that. So this is Oz's third film,
Yeah.
but the first that he didn't write the screenplay for.
That would make a lot of sense because I feel like, I don't know, the person I went and saw it with said they felt like it got lost in the edit. I don't even know that it was there in the script. I don't think they had a damn idea of what they were going to end up with. And then tried to make something creepy and interesting in the end, but every creepy thing I was like, that's not creepy. You're overly lit. We've already seen this 5 times. We all know the story of Hansel and Gretel, so like this is not a surprise in any way.
Well, but this is Gretel and Hansel.
Well, okay. Yes, there's a teeny tiny amount of.
Do we know that story?
Well, now we do. It's so very different from the other one. Let me tell you. So different.
Well, I got to say, that's disappointing to hear, but you're not the first person that I've heard this from.
And I've seen a few people really talk about thinking it was amazing.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. I mean, maybe it's just, I don't know. I don't know if I'm just like lost touch with the people and the masses and what's good for most people because I've seen too much. But I was 0% impressed. I would give that a solid maybe 2 stars, maybe.
Let me ask you this. When you're watching a movie that is not working for you, are you going, I wouldn't have cut there and I wouldn't have edited that and I would have, are you looking at things where you would have made it better?
I'm not. I try very, very hard, especially the first time through, to let the film have as much opportunity as possible to woo me. And so
Nice.
I really try to sit back and just if I start to fall out of the story, I try to find ways to get back in because I edit all day long. I don't want to be thinking of how they could edit it better. That is not fun for me. But when you're watching it and going, okay, I don't know why we're here. You haven't explained, this doesn't make any sense. That's not creepy. That was kind of creepy, I guess. Sort of, maybe. And then, nope, actually, you know what? In retrospect, not creepy. Like the whole way through, I was just desperately trying to find something in there to redeem it because I do really like the director. But no. I was not looking for the bad. I was genuinely looking for the good.
Well, that is really disappointing because Oz has been making the rounds on all the horror podcasts, and he seems like a really neat guy, and they are pushing this movie hard, and I think that it kind of flopped also. So, I don't know.
Well, I will look forward to hearing what you guys think if you happen to catch it.
Well, I won't be rushing out.
No, I think I'll wait for a video.
I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate it.
I've influenced at least 2 people to be slightly less interested in this movie.
But then there's now maybe we'll like it a little bit more.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I dare you to enjoy this film. That is my challenge to both of you.
Wow. Do you have other ones you've seen?
Well, I don't know if you guys caught any of Locke Key, which came on this.
I completely missed that open until I saw you say something about it online. It's like, oh, crap.
And you?
I actually, I haven't read the comics, so I didn't want to, but then it was just sitting there so happily, just playing on rotation, the same trailer over and over again. So I watched I watched the full first episode.
Okay, and now I was a huge fan of the comics, so now I want to hear what you thought of that first episode.
It was super engaging. I enjoyed the story. It definitely felt like it felt YA. I don't know if it's meant to be YA.
Well, I thought it felt very YA also, and the comic is not. No. The comic is a horror comic with a little bit of fantasy sprinkled in. This feels very much like a fantasy story.
It's very unfortunate events feeling.
That's too bad. That's a weird interpretation.
And the other thing that was weird is that, so the comic was released in 6-issue arcs, and there were 6 of them. There's stuff in that first episode that doesn't even happen until the last arc of the series. And so they're really bopping around and stuff. And I was thinking to myself, this kind of comic book series is tailor-made for Netflix's way of releasing things and then a new season. So why wouldn't you just try to adapt it pretty faithfully and then have your next season be the second arc of 6?
Who put it out?
Is
it Amazon? Or
no, that's Netflix.
It is Netflix. Okay.
Maybe the problem that I really have with it is that the acting is really good. The sets are amazing.
Yeah,
The
it's fun.
key house is gorgeous looking. And then I'm like, this would be perfect with this kind of quality if you also followed the story. And I had a feeling there was going to be a problem. I heard an interview with somebody just a couple days before where they were saying, I think the people who are real fans of the comic will be a little surprised the way things turn out and stuff like that. And I was like, well, I don't want to be surprised. I want to see something that I loved already. And if you didn't want to do that, you should make your own fucking thing. Yeah.
That's how I feel about Sabrina, frankly. The Chilling Tales of Sabrina.
You're not liking it?
I hated it.
Wow.
Yeah, because like the comic, that's the problem. The comic is so good and it's so powerful and it's so dark and like just gritty that when you watch like freaking Nancy Drew with a couple of twists, it's like, oh, you buried your aunt and she came back. Great. Well done. That's really hard. Okay. Like, it's just not like, oh, well, and then the skin melted off of somebody. You know, it's a little bit of a different situation. It's much more, and even in season 2, when it felt like they were promising you she'd go dark and they didn't, it was like, wow, well, you went quote unquote dark, except for you're exactly the same.
It works. I enjoy the show a lot, but then I watched it as I'd seen a little bit of the TV show before, the previous TV show. I did not realize it was currently I didn't realize it was coming off of a comic.
I didn't either. When you said that, I was kind of like,
it's from
what?
a comic. Yeah.
So I just was thinking, wow, what an amazing update to a show from the 90s.
Right. No, it's same with Riverdale. It's actually there's the artist / writer he's like the head of the show. I mean, like that actually makes me feel better knowing that maybe people don't realize that it's based off the comic because that
I
kind of love the new Sabrina, but this is all I know about it.
No,
yeah, exactly.
I'm glad. Yeah, because if you read the comic, it's just so good.
I'm gonna have to check out the comic now.
I would totally recommend it. I think you did it the right way around, in which case, because you probably won't be mad then.
Right.
You'll just be like, this is even better. It's stuff being thrown at me.
About the only thing getting me, I've only about 3 or 4 episodes into the 3rd season. I'm like, did they run a little bit out of story? You know, we need a song here.
There's a lot of music in this 3rd season.
And pointless music. It's kind of fun when like the cheerleader squad does a song, but so far in 3 episodes, the band has had 2 full songs just sitting in a room. I'm like, this is
hilarious.
Weird. So
I think that this is the point is to show off a little bit that everybody can sing.
Yeah, they're pretty good
and do stuff. But don't we live in a world where we realize every actor has a fairly decent voice?
True. And can dance.
Yeah, this is what they were fucking trained to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm like, I've decided when that band pops up again, it's like, oh, fast forward a little bit.
Well, that's the weird thing is, what, have they popped up 3 times or something?
I think twice.
I think there's one more, and then not for the rest of the season. It makes 0 sense. I expected, Battle of the Bands at the end of this or some Scott
weird.
Pilgrim shit, and no.
At least like in Riverdale, when they do the musical episode, it really makes sense because they're all training to do a musical. And then they do a musical, and during the musical, it's a musical episode, and you're like, oh, all right, cool.
I think the best show at pulling off those weird ass episodes is Supernatural, where you just pull a strange episode out of the blue for no real reason, and they're almost always some of the best episodes of the series.
Wow.
Yeah, I agree.
Wow.
I've not seen very much Supernatural, but I hear endlessly good things about it.
It's very entertaining.
I unfortunately just don't have 10 years worth of time on my
No, it's only, it's 15 now, or 16.
Oh, 16 years. I'm sorry, 16 years of seasons to get through.
I have to admit, I haven't watched any of this season.
I'm enjoying it. It's pretty solid. It's been a little different. It's kind of neat, but I watch it. I figured out Supernatural is if we watch it one a week, it kind of slogs a little now.
Oh, sure.
But if I wait till there's like 4 and then we'll watch them, or 3 and then we'll watch them in
Do
one
they
day.
still have the 2 main guys?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yep. I mean, that's the only reason to watch the show at some points. There's some rough seasons.
Yeah.
Overall, pretty entertaining. And the Scooby-Doo crossover episode, one of the single great episodes in TV history.
Wow.
It's so good.
Interesting. That sounds crazy.
Along those lines of remastered, what do you guys think of the Ghostbusters trailer, which oddly showed before Little Women? So I was like, okay,
That's
sure.
weird. I have not seen it in theaters yet. I am so unbelievably excited.
I think it looks like a neat interpretation. Have you seen the full trailer with?
Yeah. I think It's hard because they're struggling against the gigantic success of Stranger Things, and this
Right.
looks like
I
a
totally
Stranger
thought you were
Things
going to
movie.
say the gigantic success of the most recent Ghostbusters
It's like,
film.
no, that's not a struggle.
No, and so
Downhill battle.
I think that this looks like it's a Stranger Things movie.
It does.
almost.
Yes, it does.
It's because it's got the kid from Stranger Things. in
That
it.
doesn't hurt it, or that doesn't help it either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, and I think the only reason Stranger Things looks that way is because of Ghostbusters and Indiana Jones and all the movies that
It's so
were happening
secular.
at the time it's based in. So I don't know. I'll definitely go see it. It looks fun.
Looks fun.
Yeah.
Paul Rudd's, one of those fun kind of actors
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, it just looks like they've really been very thoughtful
Mm-hmm.
and loving towards the what it's stemming off
Mm-hmm.
of. So I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful
Yeah.
that it doesn't just suck.
Yeah, before Little Women last night was a little weird. So there's that, and then an ad for SpongeBob SquarePants. I'm like,
What?
demographic are you guys trying to hit here?
They're like, it's got to be teens. It's got to be teens. I can't imagine why else.
Anything else? Yeah, somebody else?
I finally watched the first full episode of Dracula, and then half of the second episode and half of the third episode.
you
Interesting
didn't
way to do
finish the
things.
second episode?
Well, I was in the middle of the second episode,
The
and then
third episode must have been really freaking weird for you.
it was a
then.
little confusing. Not gonna lie, I knew he was on a ship. I had that much to work with. No, the third. Well, the thing is, I was staying over with my brother for the last week, and he gets in late. I get in late, and he's like, "I'm just gonna put on this thing that I'm partway through." So I've seen partway into Ragnarok, partway into Vikings season, whatever they're on, and this show. So I was like, "Oh, sure." He's like, "Do you mind?" I was like, "No, it's fine. I don't care. Why not?" So I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." I have no idea where it goes. I don't know how it ends, but it was fun.
Well, the first episode's the best.
The first episode is by far the best.
I will say, yeah, going from the end of the first episode to the start of the second was so jarring because you're like, wait, you were on a cliffhanger. This isn't being cliffhung at all. This is 0%. Wait, what happened? What happened? Yeah, so I definitely felt that shift in directors and tone.
Yeah. I like the guy playing Dracula
He's
a lot.
so good. He is so good.
Well, cool. Why don't we
All right.
take a little break, you guys, and then we're going to come back and we're going to get into our picks for romance and horror.
Woo.
This is so romantic.
Well, it's about to get a little bit more romantic. A little candlelight
Oh.
and a little Bud Light. Do you smell barbecue? Oh!
And we are back. Thanks for hanging out with us, you guys. We're talking romance and horror, Eric, and this was your pick.
Yes, it was.
So you get to go first.
Okay.
Fucking hate you.
Here's where the excitement begins.
Ooh, I want to know what you picked.
So, yeah, I picked kind of an unusual one. When I first started looking, I'm kind of like, Jesus, man, this is a little harder than I thought. And then kept looking and then, oh, wow, that looks cool. Oh, wow, that looks cool. Oh, fuck. Okay. But I finally settled on a Colombian shot film called The Hidden Face.
El búnker es un lugar aislado de todo. Una caja dentro de otra caja. Vidrio blindado de transparencia unidireccional. Blindaje acústico a prueba de todo. ¿Por qué no lo pones a prueba? Dale una pequeña lección.
Esto no es fácil. No tengo fuerzas para decírtelo a la cara. Me voy. Te quiero mucho. Por favor, no me busques. Y no me odies.
¿Le parece un poco precipitado que el tipo ese esté saliendo con usted justo ahora que desapareció su novia?
¿Estás celoso? Creo que hay un fantasma.
Es la obra maestra de mi marido. Es su más oscuro secreto.
Not familiar with this at all.
Came out in, I didn't write it down, but I believe it was 2004.
Okay.
sometime between 2004 and 2011. Could probably
That
look that up
tiny
right
amount
now.
of time.
Could probably look that up right now, but whatever. Anyways, so it's the Rotten Tomato scores are pretty good. Had an 80 from critics and a 72 from audience. That's pretty solid. $2.6 million budget and made 6.3. So a nice little run-of-the-mill underground hit, kind of. Directed by Andreas Baez, who's best known for Narcos TV.
Oh, sure.
Santana's. I'm not sure. Looked cool. No. He also was one of the writers, along with Arturo Infante. It's been a while since I've had one of these.
Yeah. We're waiting. We're watching.
Hatim Karachi. That sounds cool.
Does sound pretty great.
Basically, they've done these three writers. He's also one of the actors in it. Has done a lot of stuff together, shorts together, and they worked on a bunch of the people that have been on Narcos. So it's the director's bringing on some of his favorite actors to work on this. Hatim was also the lead actor. He played in Dark Blue, Almost Black, Rosa TV, lots of Spanish TV. Martina Garcia was in Narcos, Rage, Homeland, ABCs of Death 2. And Clara Lago was in The Commuter, which I talked about on the show a long time ago, which was not great. And The End, and lots of TV. That's about it. There's other people in it, but it's pretty much these three performers, one guy, two women. They're all good. They're all really solid and interesting to watch. I don't know if you've seen a lot of Spanish. It's Colombian made, but it's also Spanish, from Spain, Spanish. And if you've watched a lot of Spanish movies, there's a style. And this has that style. Sort of like the French New Wave in the early 2000s. There's a series of 5 or 6 films that fit right into that. And if you haven't seen one of them, but you've seen the other 4, you'll immediately recognize that. Oh, this is that same period. This has that same kind of feel. It did really well in Colombia. It got the equivalency of 9. They have their Oscars, of course, like every country does. It got 9 nominations, 2 wins for one for Best Supporting Actress for Clara and for Best Sound, which is important part of this film. How to explain this without destroying it? Has a little bit of a Parasite storyline going on here.
Okay.
I mean, it's nothing like that, but it's that kind of a story where it's like, oh, how much do I let go? It starts off with the lead guy showing up at a bar and getting really drunk. And the waitress kind of hits on him, takes him home, and they spend the night together, but they don't spend the night together. He wakes up the next morning, he's kind of a total dick to her, or as my autocorrect said, he's a duck in the morning.
Oh, I hate dudes who are ducks in the morning. Ugh.
Then later that night, he goes back to apologize, and of course, they go home together, and they do spend the night together.
He shows her his duck.
That's right.
Does it quack? No, sorry, I'm out.
She quizzically is asking him if he's got a girlfriend or a wife, what's going on, what's being weird. He said, no, everything's fine. The next morning, though, 2 police detectives show up at the front door. And we wanted to give you an update on your missing girlfriend. So
Oh my
she's in the
gosh.
background going, what? And one of the detectives is her ex. So
Whoa.
they end up talking a little bit about what's happening. But it's part of what's nice about this house. It's a gorgeous house. The setup is it's a beautiful location with this amazing house. Let's see. How shall I do this? So at one point in the movie, the narrative switches very distinctly. The first part of the film is very much him and his current girlfriend, and then it flips to a flashback to the girl the cops are looking for. And it becomes her story pretty much through the rest of the movie. It's her as the lead. And so a lot of the stuff you've seen before gets shown through a different lens, which is one of those story styles I love. Like my favorite part of Interview with Vampire is only like 5 or 6 pages, but it's the 5 or 6 pages where Lestat is talking about what happened earlier from his point of view, which I just thought was amazing. And this film does that, which is really interesting because we'll do the usual. If you don't want to hear, fast forward. If you two are interested, too bad, you're going to hear it anyways. So she is rented. Her and the girl who went missing and her boyfriend he's got an assignment. He's a maestro at a symphony. And they got an assignment that moves them to this area, and she rents a house from a lady. And she starts to think he's having an affair. And the lady's like, you want to test him? The woman who owns the house says, you want to test him? It's like, sure. So she shows a secret room in the house that her now dead husband had built. It's a kind of a hermetically sealed version of a panic room, where he's built this room and it's got running water in it. It's got a bed. It's got storage and electricity. But once the door is shut, if you don't have the key, it doesn't open. And it's hermetically sealed, so the other side you can hear them through a speaker system. They can't hear anybody that's inside it. So it starts off kind of like a ghost story for the new girlfriend, because she figures out a weird way to communicate. And the new girlfriend thinks the place is haunted. Boy, I kind of want to leave it at that. The way the movie moves forward from there, of her trying to figure out, because then when you get to her other side, you realize the mirror in the bathroom and the mirror in the bedroom she can see out of. Oh. The lady who's trapped can see out of. So, of course, the first love scene with the new girlfriend starts right in front of the mirror. So these people are staring right into the mirror, looking right at her, and she's looking right back at them. It's like, fuck, that's unnerving as hell. That's really wild. Because it's such a strange camera technique, too, because they're not really spiking the camera, but it's as close as you can get. Yeah. You know, they're looking right at that rim of the lens of the camera. So it really pulls you in to her situation. So I think it's incredibly well thought out. It's really a smart film. And the things that happen after that, it makes it hard to like any of these characters, which is really kind of fun. So there, you can see where the romance falls in. I've got a couple that was, I believe, engaged to get married. And then this guy, she'd been missing for 2 or 3 months by the time he started dating the other girl. But there's scenes where she's looking out and she sees him distraught and crying because she's missing and very upset that she's gone. So she's now feeling real bad because she tested him and he turned out to be far more in love with her than she even thought. So there's a lot of heavy stuff going on in this film, and part of it is they're really good actors, and they pull the stuff off. There is one caveat I'll put in front of this film, though. It's sort of like, remember we talked about The Quiet Place, where it's like, it's really good, but if you really think about it, it's going to crumble. Mm. There are moments in this film when she first gets locked in and she's banging to try to get stuff out. I'm kind of looking around the room going, there seems to be a lot better tools for you to really try to get through things. Mm. And she uses some of them, but it's like, I feel like I want more. So you kind of got to push some of that aside. It does suffer a little bit from the maybe a little bit different. kind of like 1917. If you'd had that one moment, if she'd picked up this one thing and banged it around for a while and it didn't work, problem solved. But they didn't do that, so it sits a little there. But man, highly recommended. Hard to talk about.
Sounds really interesting. I'm definitely interested in this.
It's really good.
Would you watch this on?
Amazon, I believe.
Okay.
Pretty sure it's Amazon. And it's
How did you find out about this?
search for like romance horror movies and dive in deep.
And just keep going. Follow that
'cause
Reddit.
This is
trail.
one of those where you look it up on a few places and it's only by its Colombian name, which I don't remember. But the Hidden Face is, it'll show up most places under that, like IMDb and Amazon. So
cool.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, I was clicking through, I wrote down like 5 or 6. Well, let's check out these, watch the trailers, which immediately eliminates 2 or 3 choices. Oh, no. Then this one's like, the weird part was, I don't know what I want. The trailer had me thinking this is going to do something very different, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, I find that with like trailers, sometimes it's a really helpful way of jumping into something, and sometimes it's like so misleading.
Yes.
It's like, well, I'll go ahead and go next.
Sure.
So I picked a film that I haven't seen since I was a teenager. And I had fond memories of it, but I really wanted to like rewatch it and see if that was still true. So I picked My Boyfriend's Back.
They say when you're dead, you're dead. They say you only get one chance at life. But for childhood sweethearts Missy and Johnny, true love will never die.
My boyfriend's back and you're He came back from the dead for me.
God, my boyfriend won't even pump gas for me.
By God, if it ain't the zombie out with a living woman.
What do you have against Johnny besides the fact that he's dead?
He's a stinking zombie, you idiot.
He's been gone for such a long time.
My dad'll go berserk if he finds out I went out with a dead guy.
You stupid dead zombie pond scum.
There's a lot of prejudice against the undead.
Whore of the undead.
Tramp. Zombie lover.
We want the zombie! Let's get up! Pretty damned active for a dead guy. Come on, let's get it, Greg.
Hey, quit it! If you're gonna kill him, you're gonna have to kill me. I mean it.
My Boyfriend's Back.
Well, I hope somebody eats a whole damn bunch of you.
I remember this movie.
Yeah, I do too. I'd even picture the poster for it in my head. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Came out in 1993. The plot is a high school nerd is in love with Missy McLeod, and he has been since first grade. He comes up with a plan to ask her to prom involving a convenience store robbery where he gets his best friend to like, it is so messed up. I was like, you are so twisted. And luckily his friend says this to his face. So I was like, okay, I feel very justified in this. But he's like, all right, so she works at this convenience store. So just go rob her and I'll save her and then ask her to prom and she'll say yes. And the guy's like, what the hell? Okay, well, I'm your best friend, so I'll do it. But in the meantime, he goes to hold her up, and his best friend gets waylaid by an actual robber and ends up shooting him, and he dies. But on his like kind of deathbed on the floor of this convenience store, he looks over at her, and she's like, "You saved me." And he said, "Will you go to prom with me?" And she says, "Yes." And then he dies, and then he's buried, and there's a funeral, and then he takes himself out for prom. He comes back. So this doesn't have very good anything. It's 14% critics on Rotten Tomatoes, 45% audience, $12 million budget, $3.3 million gross.
Wow.
Yeah, this was like career killer. This is a rough film. It's brought to you by director Bob Balaban. He did a lot of TV, including Nurse Jackie, Erie, Indiana. There's a couple of episodes of Twilight Zone 2000s. He actually is more of a actor than anything else. You might know him from Gosford Park or Capote, Close Encounters. He also has done a lot of TV. He's been in 116 credits on. Okay. Yeah, so he's more of an actor, but this was, I guess, while he was dabbling. The writer is Dean Lorey. This is his first writing credit. He then went on to write Major Pain. some of Arrested Development, and My Wife and Kids. He's also a producer on Powerless, iZombie, and Harley Quinn. So he's had a pretty decent career. The stars are definitely some of the interesting parts of this film, for sure. So it stars Andrew Lowry as Johnny. He was in 12 episodes of A Different World, a TV show. He was in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie, and then he kind of disappeared in 97. Similarly, Tracy Lind, who plays Misty McLeod, was in TV show Ryan's Hope, Class of 99, Fright Night 2, and then completely stopped her career in 97. So I don't know what happened to these people in 97, but they were like...
When did this movie come out?
93.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they had a couple more. They had a couple more in them. Couple more. That is such a good point, though. And then you also have... kind of some amazing secondary characters. Edward Herman plays Mr. Dingle, Johnny's dad. You may remember him from Lost Boys as the guy who dates the mom, who turns out to be the guy.
The guy.
You know what I mean?
The video man. The video store manager.
Yes, the guy who's
I know
into the
that
video
you
store
just recently saw The Lost Boys, so you're afraid of spoiling it. But everybody else has seen The Lost Boys.
Fine. He's the evil dude in Lost Boys. He's the head vampire. He's also in Gilmore Girls as Mr. Gilmore, which is what I know and love him from. He's so good in that series. He's no longer with us, but he was amazing. Then you have Mrs. Dingle, who's I didn't know her as well. Mary Beth Hurt, who's in Lady in the Water, Exorcism of Emily Rose, Age of Innocence. The guy who plays Dr. Bronson, it's interesting. There's a couple of people in here who are just in a million things. So Austin Pendleton, who plays the doctor, has been in 148 things. Then there's J.O. Sanders as a sheriff and Paul Dooley as Big Chuck, and they've both been in just hundreds of things.
I'm a big Paul Dooley fan.
Are you?
Yeah.
This is the movie for you. Let me tell you. But then... we have the school bullies, which is actually including Missy's boyfriend, Missy's jealous asshole boyfriend, played by Matthew Fox.
Oh,
and his
nice.
bully friend who goes and tries to beat the shit out of our main character, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Wow.
Matthew McConaughey is in this as guy number 2. And Renee Zellweger was in it as somebody who got cut from the film.
God damn it. I'm going to watch this movie again now.
Crazy. I didn't even realize it was Matthew Fox until I was looking stuff up after. And I was like, oh my God. And while I was watching it, I did think that guy looks a lot like Philip Seymour Hoffman. But I was like, there's no way. First of all, he's a little bit, a little bit in better shape than the typical Hoff situation. I was like, I think I'm just seeing things. Nope. Totally him. Oh my God. And he commits to being a dumbass bully. So good. So the plot is definitely super fun. So obviously a kid dies, comes back, and when he comes back, there's this whole, I'm not a zombie, I'm here, check me out, I'm walking around. There's this sort of moment of denial, and then he gets home and his parents are just mourning his loss, and he comes in, they're like, there's this great quote from the film. Mr. Dingle, son, your mother and I and the ambulance driver and the coroner and the embalmer were all pretty much convinced you were dead. There's just so many great one-liners in this. Dr. Bronson says, okay, well, you're dead, which is unusual because we don't usually we don't normally see this much activity in a dead person. Mr. Dingle, when he's burying his son, at which point his wife, by the way, throws a sandwich into the casket or into the grave. She's got it's like a bologna sandwich where she's cut off the thing. She just tosses it at him. He says, goodbye, son. Be nice to God. There are just so many really the script is just so well written. The story is completely on the nose. It's really silly. It does have its downsides where I think they're kind of trying to make a race allegory with him coming back as a zombie, because it's like, oh, you don't want to hang out with the dead kid. He's like, you don't know what it's like to be a dead kid. And man, they really represent us incorrectly. We're just trying to We're not like that.
I have a dead
okay?
friend.
And everybody's just from
best friends are dead.
From the get-go, they just commit. Like everyone's like, oh, he's dead, he's back, and we all just are rolling with it. So he gets into class late the first day and he's like, you wouldn't believe what happened to me. And the teacher's like, just because you're dead doesn't mean that you can come late to my class. It's just constant kind of zingers like that. One of my favorite parts of this film is kind of a neat little callback. They're at the movies watching a zombie film. And, it's like, oh man, yeah, they totally misrepresenting my people, blah, blah, blah. The movie they're watching is The Midnight Hour. Yeah, the 1985 previously on the show discussed Midnight Hour. I was like, that's beautiful.
That must have made you so happy.
I was so happy. I was like, oh, it's all coming together now. It's a sweet film. It's got a couple of twists along the way where, I mean, like, where are you going to go with a zombie who's slowly rotting, trying to make it to prom with this girl who, by the way, also has this great line where he's like, hey, so, I'm back and we're going to prom, right? What time can I pick you up? And she said, I don't think it's a good idea. He's like, but you promised me. And she's like, I really didn't think you were going to make it. He's like, but I came back for you. There's just, and he basically has to spend the film re-wooing her. Like he's tricked her into going on a date with him, but then he has to actually go through the motions of being a good guy and doing these positive things for her. And she slowly comes around. And I think she has a thing for dead dudes too. It gets really uncomfortable at moments. Like, I'm just like, okay. Yeah. Whew. I don't know how you find that sexy, but good for you, girl. I'm glad you are fulfilling a dream.
Post-mortem permanent boner.
I think they actually made a reference to that in there. I may have just disregarded it from my brain. It was a little bit upsetting. It has a really neat ending considering like all the ways you can go with this film. I thought that they actually chose a really good positive way of going, because they could have just been like, oh, he rots to death or he becomes a permanent zombie, or I don't know, like what they could have gone with, but it makes no sense, but it's great. It is fun. It's ridiculous. Like I said, it has a lot of great one-liners. The premise is awesome because everyone buys into it. The sandwich is great. There's animated portions which are also random where they're like it's like you're flipping through a comic book and then you land in scenes and they start the scenes by doing an animated version of them, like longer than you expect. You expect maybe like a page and then it falls on a shot and then goes into the shot. No, they start to play out the scene. And I'm like, man, you freaking animated a lot. The things I didn't like about it, I didn't like the weird race thing. The music wasn't great, I have to say. And worst of all, they never play My Boyfriend's Back.
I was just going to ask, is that at least on
it's in the trailer, though. It's in the trailer. Why couldn't you get the rights for the film the whole way? I'm like, I love that song so much. And I was just waiting.
I wonder if the movie wasn't called My Boyfriend's Back while they were in production.
It's a question that has no answer, at least on Wikipedia. So
it is one of life's great mysteries.
We shall never know.
I'm sure there's somebody who knows.
So that was my romance pick. I will say I was nice. So happy that it stood up. I watched this with my mom because I thought she would totally dig it. She hated it.
Oh no.
I know.
She was part of the 14%.
Yeah, she was definitely one. She was like, I just don't get that movie. I just don't understand. I was like, it's cute and it's funny. And she's like, no, it's no good.
The way you started talking about this, I thought we were going to find out it did not hold up well for you.
I was so happy it held up.
Good.
Yeah. At least for me. Other people might watch it and be like, that's stupid. But I was just like, you know what? This is fun. This is a fun film.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
That's why we do this, right? I mean, I generally try to pick out movies that I think most people hate and put a spin on it and say, give it a chance. So.
Aww. I just definitely don't do that. But
go to the bottom of Rotten Tomatoes, go, okay, here's my start point.
And go.
Well, with that in mind, I chose a movie that most people hate from 1986. It is called The Fly.
I think you're making a mistake. I think you really want to talk to me.
Sorry, I have 3 other interviews to do before this party's over.
Yeah, but they're not working on something that'll change the world as we know it.
They say they are.
Yeah, but they're lying.
There is a limit, even to the imagination.
Human teleportation, molecular decimation, breakdown, and reformation is inherently purging.
Where our greatest creations meet our deepest fears.
Something went wrong, Seth. When you went through, something went wrong.
You are about to go beyond that limit.
Those weird hairs that were growing out of your back, I had them analyzed. But they were definitely not human.
If you saw how scared and angry and desperate he is.
I'm sure Typhoid Mary was a very nice person, too, when you saw her socially.
No!
You're afraid to be destroyed and recreated, aren't you?
You're changing, Seth. Everything about you is changing.
Oh, no. What's happening to me? Am I dying?
I want to know what's going on.
What does the disease want?
It wants to turn me into something else. Oh, no. A fly got into the transmitter pod with me that first time when I was alone.
Don't go back to it. Could be contagious.
I'm afraid!
Don't be afraid.
No. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Help me. Please, help me.
Who hates the fly?
It's a fly. It's such a good film.
It has Rotten Tomatoes critics rating of 92%.
Okay.
And the audience has it at 83%.
Fuck you, audience. Fuck you, what, those 17 people, 13?
Had a budget of $15 million and a box office of $61 million.
Whoa.
It was directed by David Cronenberg, who, if you're a horror fan, you know who David Cronenberg is.
Yeah.
My favorites of him are this, Videodrome, The Dead Zone, but he also did Existence and
Crash
and Rabid.
The good Crash, not the one that won the Best Picture.
Yeah,
Right.
no, the
better film.
The one where people are getting into it over.
It's an uncomfortable film, but
It's an uncomfortable
it's better than the Best Picture winner.
It was written by Charles Edward Pogue and Cronenberg. Pogue wrote Psycho 3, the Dragonheart series, a number of other movies that were not very good. This does not feel like his writing at all, and I think the Cronenberg part of this is that he did a major rewrite when he was hired on. We can get into that later because he was not the first choice to direct this.
Oh.
It stars Jeff Goldblum, who we all know from everything.
Yeah.
It stars Gina Davis, who we also all know from everything. It was produced by Mel Brooks.
Really? That's cool.
And the story is Seth Brundle is this brilliant but quite eccentric inventor who has created these two telepods that allows him to teleport inanimate objects from one pod to the other. They look like gigantic, crazy telephone booths. I don't even know why I'm telling anybody what this movie is about because it's on everyone's radar.
As I say, this is definitely your highest pull, I guess you'd say.
Well,
usually you pull real deep. This is
I do. The reason I picked this one is because the romance is so important a part of this film. Anyway, he meets this this reporter, and to woo her, he basically brings her back to his place and shows her that he can teleport things, and she wants to do the story, and he kind of balks at that, but agrees to let her document him trying to figure out how to transport living flesh instead of just the inanimate objects. She documents him. She's very impressed. They go through all of the ups and downs of this stuff, and she starts falling for him because, let's face it, Goldblum is a fairly attractive guy, but he's also so likable.
Yes.
And it is not hard to believe that a beautiful woman would fall for him. So she has an ex-boyfriend who happens to be the editor of the magazine that she works for, and he keeps popping up and getting in the way. And at one point, she leaves to deal with him, and Seth jealously decides, I'm going to go through the telepod myself now. And he doesn't care if it kills him because he's drunk and he's super depressed about her going back to her boyfriend. And so he gets in the telepod and doesn't realize that a common housefly is also in the telepod with him. And the telepod configures their DNA together. And so the rest of the movie is him slowly transforming into a giant 6-foot fly. Everybody's seen the movie. Everybody loves the movie. But what you might have forgotten is how believable the romance between Seth Brundle and Veronica Quaife. Yeah, it's an unfortunate last name.
I always remember Brundle as Brundlefly.
Brundlefly, right. So from the very first scene, Seth and Veronica are on screen together. It starts out at the party with him hitting on her. We haven't seen him walk up to her or anything. They're standing next to each other, and he's hitting on her. And he's so bad at flirting. And that also makes him very lovable. It plays out as they are flirting together at his place and the telepods and all this stuff. And then you can see it grow as they get closer and closer to figuring out the code to make sure that living flesh can transport. And it's because they're in bed together, and she's like biting his flesh, and she's like, it's like a little baby's flesh, it's delicious and all this stuff. And he gets, a light bulb above his head and says, I have to teach the computer how to love flesh the way that we love flesh. And of course, that's one of those weird things that is never really explained, because then his fingers are just flying across a keyboard, and he's teaching the computer how to love flesh, apparently.
Scientifically.
Right. So she's falling for him because of how brilliant he is, and
the way he looks when he gets out of the pod without the shirt on in that one scene. Like, oh my!
and so that's a really honorable way, I think, in a film of two people falling in love. When one person is falling in love with somebody's brain, I think that holds a little more for us, or it does for me at least. I completely get that. It's jealousy that sends him alone through the telepod the first time because of his feelings for her. And when he starts going crazy, she's worried. She's not scared so much of him as she's like, what's going on to this, what's happening to this man I love? When he starts transforming, he's pushing her away because he's afraid he might hurt her. She's holding on. She doesn't want to leave him alone. She wants to help him because, God, he looks frightening at these end scenes. And she's, she's trying to do everything she can to stay with him. And it's the beauty of their love story that makes the very tragic ending so tragic because, we've all seen the movie. He wants to, he's gone a little insane, and he has this amazing dialogue about insect politics and how insects don't have politics because they're vicious and they just want what they want. And he understands that's what he's doing. And when he finds out that she is pregnant with his baby, he thinks, oh, we'll all go through the telepod together and I can get a little bit of my humanity back. And you realize, how horrifying that is, but that he's not really himself anymore. The fly is taking over. And at the end, she ends up getting away from him as he's trying to make this happen, and he teleports himself and part of the telepod into the next telepod, and he comes out just this quivering mass of part metal and all this, and crawls towards her and kind of makes her kill him. And it's
I got that shot in my head there.
Yeah, it's just one of those, and she's so good. She starts crying and screaming, and it's just heartbreaking because it feels so real. Part of that is probably because of the fact that they were very much in love, the two actors, Geena Davis and Jeff Goldblum, at that time. They met on the set of Transylvania 65000. They made that movie together. They then made this movie together, and they divorced a year after their last film together, Earth Girls Are Easy. I would say that out of the three, this is the strongest film. Yes. Yeah. But consider what this film might have been like if Michael Keaton was playing the part of Seth Brundle.
Oh, no.
He turned it down.
Good.
God.
James Woods was offered the part.
That's...
Jesus.
He turned it down. Richard Dreyfuss was offered the role.
Who was casting at this point, man? What the hell?
Mel Gibson turned the movie down because he thought Lethal Weapon would be a better fit for him.
Well,
he's
right.
Some of those, Linda Hamilton was also offered the role of Geena Davis at the time. This is 1986. I can see that
a little more than almost any of those guys.
Some of these weird casting calls casting suggestions might make a little more sense if you knew that this was originally Tim Burton's film to make.
Oh my gosh. That makes a lot of sense.
And then when he couldn't come to grips with the script and make it the way he wanted to, he took off and they offered it to David Cronenberg after that.
Wow.
And Cronenberg said, the only way I'll do it is if I can do a rewrite on the script. So he wrote most of this, but he made sure that Charles Edward Poe got the writing credit.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Because he wanted him to have it for his career. Cronenberg knew he didn't need the writing credit himself.
Yeah, he was pretty established. One thing you bypass too, if you are a horror fan that hasn't seen this and you're like, oh, it sounds so lovey-dovey. Movie's gross too.
Oh,
it is so violent.
It is very much a Cronenberg.
And that was one of the Cronenberg's thing when he was making. I remember reading an interview or something with him where he talked about, I wanted to make this just gross as I possibly could. And the arm wrestling scene.
The arm wrestling scene, or the way he has to eat when he's a fly, which
Here's how Brundlefly eats.
Right. One of the interesting scenes that was cut from the film, and I think it was smartly cut, is there is a scene where Seth sends through that baboon and a cat together, and they come out all screwed up, and that's supposed to kind of foreshadow what's going to happen with him. It comes out, and he ends up having to kill it, and he beats it to death with a pipe. And I guess in the original showing of it, the audience said, really tough to like this guy at all after he beats a baboon cat to death with a lead pipe.
I can see that.
Interesting.
There's Shout Factory put out an interesting box set. With this. It was The Fly 2, the Vincent Price version of The Fly.
Oh my gosh.
The Return of the Fly, I think, and The Curse of the Fly. So it's 5 movies in a all remastered Blu-ray set. It's really nice. It's one I ended up getting because I didn't have
Howard's features.
any of them. Pretty good.
Oh, great.
Shout Factory. So
Very cool.
they're loaded with. I was going to say, maybe a highlight. Oh my God, never mind. Just mentioned to go check it out if you're interested. But they do.
Well, that was my pick, and this was a fun episode for me to hear these other movies.
Oh my gosh, so fun! It was so hard to choose.
Yeah, well, I think that there's a lot of romance in horror, and I think that we all picked stellar movies for it. I'm really looking forward to seeing this Hidden Faces movie.
There's a movie or two that I also wrote up that I didn't talk about today, partially because we did that Oscar rundown, but I'll bring up at some future episode. But I saw a couple pretty damn good ones for this.
Oh, nice.
Well, you guys, it's my pick for next week, and I've been threatening to do this for a long time, and I'm doing it.
Come on. I hope it's what come on, bring it on.
You guys, it feels so good to be so bad. And I am making you choose movies that are so bad they're good.
Okay.
Yes.
I guess we can do that.
I want to throw a big, huge shout out to Ron Forbeck, who did you see the little logo he made for the Strange Eons Army with the helmet and the tentacles?
It has pizza in it.
It's got pizza in it.
What? I have to see this. That sounds awesome.
Ron has been awesome. Danny Williford, of course. Craig Mullins texts me after every episode or during the episode sometimes and lets me know what his pick would have been for it. So that's kind of neat. And just all the other people who are constantly making little notes and comments on the site. Heather Reesby and God, so many people. Just really appreciate all the stuff that you guys are doing for us. And
I also just want to jump in really quick and say thank you to my cousin who started listening kind of out of the blue and then just like mass listened to us for hours and hours.
Oh no,
that's so cool. So cool. And she doesn't even like horror films. So I was, wow. Thank you, Tiffany.
Oh, thanks, Tiffany.
Very cool.
Okay, so that's it for this episode. We will see you guys in a week for movies that are so bad they're good. Our show is recorded somewhere high above Naval Station Everett at the nexus of all realities and is engineered and produced by Eric Morgret. Our theme music is Strange Eons Part 1 by the band Nightshade and is used with permission. Find Strange Eons Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and wherever fine